Hello everyone and welcome to Split Second. My name is Cicada and I'll be taking you through today's match. Before starting, we at Split Second want to thank everyone for your constant support and suggestions on all social media. You can continue to support us by sharing and liking this video, subscribing if you haven't yet, by becoming a patron, or simply by not skipping the ads on our videos. This week we're doing our monthly special with Voltron as theme. Joining us for this match is an LGS member, Klaus, who enjoys making splashier and more synergistic decks. Our Voltron commanders are me with Dragonlord Ojutai, Klaus with the classic Uriel, David with another well-known Voltron, Sigarda Host of Herons, and Bal with his classic build for equipment Kemba. Klaus won the role this week. He has 2 lands, Path of Ancestry and Cavern of Souls. He also has 2 ramp enchantments in Fertile Ground and Verdant Haven. Ancestral Mask is a decent Voltron aura, while Unquestioned Authority makes Uriel basically unblockable. Sunforger is a good way for Klaus to tutor responses. Nonetheless, the lack of lands might slow his game plan a bit. David's hand is somewhat balanced thanks to the combination of 3 lands: Forest, Horizon Canopy, and Marsh Flats, with card draw from Sylvan Library and Harmonize. He has 2 auras in Rancor and Ancestral Mask, but no ramp. Bal only has a Plains in his hand as a land, but land tax can help him fix that. Additionally, he has Soul Ring to ramp up. Mask of Memory is pretty decent draw, Sevinne's Reclamation is a powerful recursion card, and Hammer of Nazan is also pretty good in this equipment-focused deck. Elesh Norn helps Kemba's cat army become that much more powerful. Finally, I mulligan down to 6 while trying to look for faster hands. I have Skycloud Expanse and Sea of Clouds for lands, a Drannith Magistrate to maybe cut everyone from getting their Voltron boys out, a SRAM Senior Edificer to draw me cards when I find my equipment cards, Impulse for card selection, and Mana Drain to interact with the table. I sent Flagstones of Trocaire to the bottom of my library. Let the slapfest begin. Klaus and David started with a single land before passing. Klaus played a tapped Path of Ancestry and David played Marsh Flats. Bal started with his own plains and cast land tax before passing to me. I played Sea of Clouds and we're back to Klaus. On Klaus's turn, we ask him if he wants to skip the land drop so Bal's land tax won't trigger. He is very tempted, well, not really, and plays Cavern of Souls naming Beast. Then, he enchants the Path of Ancestry with Fertile Ground before moving to his end step. David uses it to crack his fetch for a Temple Garden. David plays a Forest and then casts Luminarch Ascension, tipping the scales on how the game might progress. He passes to Bal. At the beginning of his upkeep, Bal's land tax allows him to fetch for up to 3 planes, which he does. He plays 1 and follows that with a Soul Ring and a Mask of Memory before passing with a decent setup. The Luminarch Ascension gains 1 counter. On my turn, I play Skycloud Expanse. At this point, I could play Drannith Magistrate and cut everyone out of their Voltron commander. I would have if not for the Ascension, which would eventually pitch me versus David and with small options to win that fight. So, I decide to let everyone kill each other while growing a board, playing SRAM instead. David's Ascension gets its 2nd counter. On Klaus's turn, he does not find a land drop. Instead, he casts Verdant Haven on his Cavern of Souls, and the counters on Luminarch Ascension keep increasing. David is chilling in his seat. He plays Horizon Canopy and casts Sylvan Library before passing. Once again, Bal's land tax lets him get 3 additional basic planes. It's putting in the work. He plays 1 and casts his commander, Kemba, which he equips with Mask of Memory. On his end step, David's Ascension is complete and he is now free to spawn angels. Note the Ascension can get more counters, but we don't have cards that interact with those, so we won't be narrating the next ones. I'll discard the planes to hand size. On my turn, I play a main phase Impulse due to not finding a land or ramp. I play a tapped Prairie Stream before attacking David with SRAM, just so he draws less half a card with Sylvan Library. Klaus starts his turn casting Greater Good. We assume this means he did not find a land, but he actually did, even though it's not the best of the bunch. A Groll Turf. We watch as he painfully bounces back to Cavern of Souls, losing Verdant Haven. He will still be able to cast Uriel the turn after this one. David draws 3 with the library and keeps an extra card, losing 4 life, before playing a forest. David is currently able to sit back and just spawn 4/4 angels, so he does just that. Bal's upkeep got slightly busier, with Kemba giving him a cat token before land tax gets him 2 more basic planes, one of them going straight to the battlefield. Bal is not going to miss land drops anytime soon. He casts Hammer of Nazan and attaches it to Kemba, making her girthier and indestructible. Afraid to provoke David and draw no cards, he attacks me for 4 commander damage. The Mask of Memory triggers, drawing him 2 and letting him discard a planes. On his second main, Bal plays a Sigarda's 8. He then discards planes to hand size on his cleanup. My turn is a bit anemic with just a Felwar Stone before I pass. Just kidding, I'm holding on to mana drain. It's turn 5 and Klaus's Uriel comes out the turn he was scheduled to after he plays Cavern of Souls naming Beast. He then goes to end step and David spawns 2 angels. The board is steadily increasing in size. David is once again taking damage from his library to draw an additional card. He plays Verdant Catacombs and casts Collector Oof. I think for a bit but end up having to mana drain it. Bal's mostly unaffected, it kills my Felwar Stone and it will send me at least 1 turn behind when my plan is to cast my commander. David does not pressure the board with his angel army. Bal spawns 2 cats with Kemba and only gets 2 planes with land tax this time around, to leave some targets for his fetch lands. He plays the planes and casts Elesh Norn. The board tips in power. Moving to combat, Bal attacks David to force him into being proactive. David cracks his fetch for a Savannah, spawns an angel and surprises us by triple blocking Kemba. Before damage, David nature claims the hammer to try and take the Cat Lord down. Bal does not blink when he casts Flawless Maneuver to keep her around. Kemba takes out 2 angels before Bal passes. On my turn, I use the mana from my mana drain to help me cast Dragonlord Ojutai. Additionally, I cast the freshly drawn Sigarda's 8. Time to look for solutions. Klaus starts off with a forest and enchants it with Wolf Willow Haven. After enchanting plenty of lands, he enchants Uriel for the first time with unquestioned authority. He then uses Open the Armory to fetch for a Bear Umbra, making me wonder if he has the other combo piece lying around. He passes, not daring it to attack just yet. David only draws 1 card and plays a forest, no longer leading the game. Bal only gets 1 cat this time around, and he gets a single planes with land tax. He plays the planes and moves to combat, pressuring me with Kemba and Elesh Norn while the cats go to David. David spawns 3 angels and uses them to chump block all incoming damage. Bal's Mask of Memory triggers. On his second main phase, he plays 2 equipment tutors in the shape of Stonehewer Giant and Relic Seeker. My turn is really simple. I attack Bal with Ojutai, triggering my commander for a card. I play Academy Ruins and sit back. Klaus opens the turn with a force into a Bear Umbra on Uriel, following that with Felidar Umbra. His commander is now a healthy 11/11. He attacks Bal with it since he has the strongest board. Klaus lands untap and Bal gets hit. On his second main phase, Klaus casts Aggravated Assault and activates it. Bal suggests we concede, but I disagree. Klaus takes out the strongest player, Bal, with commander damage and tapping his lands. He also gets to cast a Sunforger on his extra main phase before activating the assault once more. Klaus attacks David, untapping once again. On his second main, he equips Sunforger and gets another attack in. He goes for me this time around since I was the one who said I didn't feel like surrendering. I cast Settle the Wreckage. In response, Klaus sacrifices Uriel to greater good, drawing a whopping 17 cards and discarding 3. His land's still untapped with the Bear Umbra trigger, and Klaus casts an Emerald Medallion and recasts his commander on his second main phase before passing and discarding a bunch to hand size. Threat diffused for now. David draws 1 from the library and plays the planes. He follows that with his Sigarda. All commanders are set. On my turn, I cast Staggering Insight on my Ojutai and attack Klaus to draw a card while gaining some life. Ojutai triggers and then the Insight also triggers. 2 cards. I play a Chrome Mox, exiling Dranith Magistrate, may he rest in peace, before casting my only half-baked solution, Armageddon. My hope is that I can outrace through life gain and raw card advantage, since I'm sure Klaus did not keep any lands when he sculpted his hand. David creates an angel in response. I pass the turn. On Klaus's turn, he celebrates as he immediately top decks a forest. He uses it to enchant Uriel with Mark of Sakiko, which solves his mana problems-ish. Klaus attacks me with Uriel and the mark gives him 7 green mana on his second main. He uses some of it to enchant Uriel with a discounted cartouche of strength and fight Ojutai, taking out my commander. He uses the exact remaining mana to cast a Rishkar's Expertise to draw 10 and cast a spell with CMC 5 or less for free. In this case, it's a Soul's Fire to take David out. 2 men down. He discards to hand size and passes to me. On my turn, I do not have the fortune of top decking a solution and scoop. Good game. Since this was a fairly fast match, we decided to reshuffle and showcase more of our Voltron commanders. Round 2 started with Baal winning the role. He mulliganed once. He has a Genjo Castle as his only land with Chrome Mox and Mox Diamond for ramp, but without any cards he can pitch to either. The rest of his cards are equipment: Stoneforge Masterwork, Hero's Blade to instantly equip his Kemba, and the Swords of Fire and Ice and War and Peace. I kept a potentially explosive hand thanks to my ramp. Island and Flagstones of Traquair cover my colors, while Hall of Heliod's Generosity is pretty useful overall. Grim Monolith, Azorius Signet, and Talisman of Progress allow me for a turn 3 Dragonlord Ojutai, which is pretty nice. Reality Shift is good creature interaction. Klaus's hand is more focused on mana, although not a lot of it is colored. He has Reliquary Tower, Hall of Heliod's Generosity, Ceres Sanctum, and a Forest. That solitaire green mana is enough to help him cast Overgrowth and Spider Umbra in his hand. Temur Battle Rage is a surprise trick to kill a player already with some commander damage. David kept 2 planes and an Arid Mesa as lands. He has Enlightened Tutor to get him something like Sylvan Library or any aura he needs. Citizen Champion can proxy as a beater if necessary, or just draw David cards as he piles Keen Sense and Angelic Destiny onto his commander. Time for the second round of this Voltron Slapfest. Baal starts pretty lucky when he draws a plains, which he pitches to his Mox Diamond after playing a Genjo Castle. This allows him to play Hero's Blade and hopefully equip it onto Kemba on turn 2. I also get a lucky top deck. I play Flagstones of Traquair into Mana Crypt. This lets me chain into a Grim Monolith, a Talisman of Progress, and finally an Azorius Signet, all the while having mana to channel into the Signet. I pass with promises of a turn 2 Dragonlord Ojutai. Klaus and David drop a land each on their turns, Reliquary Tower and Arid Mesa. We're back to Baal. He top decks the second plains in a row, which allows him to play his commander Kemba. This triggers Hero's Blade, but not really looking for Baal to start flooding the board, I respond and cast Reality Shift on Baal's commander. He manifests the top card of his library and passes. The crypt starts up by slapping me. I play a plains and cast Ojutai, hoping to get some cards back from this investment. Klaus finds and plays his own Arid Mesa, moving to end step. David cracks his own Mesa for a Savannah and casts a Most Enlightened Tutor, getting himself a Sylvan Library to start accumulating cards. On his turn, he plays the plains and casts the library, hoping not to draw my focus. Baal gets to his turn and casts Mask of Memory. He doesn't have Kemba, but he does have a manifested card, which he equips with it before attacking David to draw 2 and discard 1. He plays a Mana Crypt and casts Dowsing Dagger, considering where to place the 0-2 plants for a bit. He gives them to me just because there was already a good chance Ojutai would get Vigilance and stop him from getting value from the dagger and the mask. On his end step, Klaus cracks his fetch for a Sacred Foundry. I dodge the Crypt's Violence this time around. Before doing anything else, I attack Klaus just so he's more manageable once Uriel is out. Ojutai triggers. Afterwards, I play a Sea of Clouds and Hammer of Nazan, which is attached to Ojutai. My commander can now deal lethal damage in 3 hits. I pass. Klaus plays a forest and enchants Sacred Foundry with Overgrowth. 1 turn for Uriel, meaning the table is still safe from that Voltron Lord. He passes. David figures he still has some time as he draws an additional card from the library. He plays Windswept Heath and passes, wishing the other 2 players good luck. Baal's Crypt takes a whack at him. He equips his manifested creature with Dowsing Dagger, attacking Klaus with it for good measure. He's not too sure about David's untapped board state. Before damage, Baal turns his manifested creature face up and, behold, it's a Relic Seeker. He has 3 triggers here. First, the Dowsing Dagger turns into a Lost Veil. Then, he draws 2 and discards 1. Finally, he tutors his library for a Sword of Feast and Famine. Not too shabby for Mono White Voltron. Baal plays Windbrisk Heights and exiles a card to its hideaway. He then plays a Mox Opal and follows that up with his Kemba. Hero's Blade attaches itself to his commander. My turn starts with another hit from the crypt. I choose to attack Baal with Ojutai just to keep him under control, since he just had a very explosive turn. Ojutai triggers. Then, I play Hall of Heliod's Generosity and pass. Klaus plays an untapped Temple Garden and casts Uriel. David responds by cracking his fetch for a Temple Garden of his own. Klaus enchants his commander with a Spider Umbra before passing. David only draws one and plays the Plains before casting Setescent Champion. He moves on, still unsure where things might lead. Baal's Crypt is kinder than mine this turn, while Kemba whisks a cat token out of thin air. Baal plays Sword of Feast and Famine and equips Kemba with both that sword and Mask of Memory. He attacks me with his Cat Lady. Before damage, I respond and tap 4 to untap the Grim Monolith. Still made Baal nervous. I take the damage and discard 1 while Baal untaps his lands before Mask of Memory is triggered. On his second main, the mono-white Voltron plays the Swords of Fire and Ice and War and Peace, equipping Kemba with both. The table is not amused. On my turn, I do have the right solution for Baal after the Crypt slaps me again. I enchant Ojutai with Battle Mastery, giving my commander double strike. Baal sees Doom fly his way as Ojutai strikes him twice, giving me 2 draw triggers and knocking one player off the board. Baal was the fastest threat both games, and thus the first focused out. I pass the turn, knowing that I am the target now. Klaus plays Sarah's Sanctum. He enchants Uriel with Unquestioned Authority, drawing 1 and making him basically unblockable. He then plays Marty's Bond, and I respond with Heliod's Intervention for 3, destroying Sylvan Library, Unquestioned Authority, and the Spider Umbra. Klaus attacks me with Uriel, and I put a plant between my life total and him. David plays the Plains. He casts Keen Sense on Setescent Champion, triggering her for a card draw and a +1/+1 counter. Unflinching Courage is also placed over the champion, triggering her again before she is swung at me. I take the damage, drawing David an additional card with Keen Sense. He passes to me. My Crypt continues its rampage on my life total. I cast Ponder before attacking David for 14 commander damage, drawing 2 in the process. Then I add a Spirit Mantle onto Ojutai before passing. I want to be sure Klaus is within reach of a lethal combat if I need him to be. Klaus is out of gas. He also plays a Hall of Heliod's Generosity and follows that with an Argothian Enchantress in order for David to attack him. Klaus said he'd block to trigger his Martyr's Bond. On his end step though, I cast Swords to Plowshares on David's champion to cut this line of play and take card draw away from David. On his turn, David plays a Forest and casts Reclamation Sage, targeting my Hammer of Nazan. In response, I cast the Teferi's Protection I was holding onto, since I have more options at the ready. David passes to me as the Sage's trigger fizzles. On my turn, the Crypt hurts me yet again. At this point, it's also gunning for my feelings. I decide to attack Klaus with Ojutai so he cannot threaten me anymore, since I feel like I have David under control. David responds by casting Nature's Claim on my Battle Mastery to try and keep Klaus around, now that he knows who I'm focusing. I counter it with Dovin's Veto. By the way, look at this cool altar sleeve by Some Neuron. Klaus dies, also giving me 2 Ojutai triggers. On my second main, I cast Grand Arbiter Augustine IV and David casts Noxious Revival on Nature's Claims. On his turn, David does not have enough mana to handle my board and concedes. Good game. Thank you for joining us for today's matches, everyone. Good old Uriel showed us the power of auras, and Klaus joins our increasing roster of victorious guests. Ojutai also managed to control the board thanks to that double strike putting in the work. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Ajimo, and Iglegal, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Come with us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.